It looks like you're there. Are you there?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Well, then I guess we're gonna
Look
do
at
this
you. That
thing.
is so funny.
Indeed, indeed. Hello, hello. Welcome back. Good evening, good evening. Hello, my name is Jay Ryan. This is the Late Night Playset. Welcome back to it. We have a great guest I was just saying hello to very quickly. I can't wait to talk to her and have her see me sitting here, of all places. Madeleine Smithberg is here, host of Mad in the Kitchen. I'm supposed to plug that furiously, fastly, furiously.
Relentlessly.
Madeleine Smithberg is here. We're going to talk all about The Daily Show. We're going to talk about probably the Letterman days and anything else she wants to as well. But welcome back to you at home. Tonight is Thursday, September 24th, 2020. That's a personal one for me. That was my dad's birthday. My dad passed away when I was 18 years old, a long, long, long time ago. But he would have been 81 years old today, which is kind of crazy to me. Kind of crazy. So happy birthday, Dad. Madeleine, I'm so
Oh, I
excited to.
can make it even more depressing with the dead dad theme.
I saw your post.
Yes,
Please tell everybody.
yeah, no, yesterday was my birthday, September 23rd, and 6 years ago to yesterday, my dad died on my birthday, and, just kind of ruining it forever.
Yeah,
But
that's it. If it, speaking of ruined birthdays, I was born on my mother's birthday, so I kind of, sort of, never ever had one.
you never had a birthday. That's like people that are born on Christmas or New Year's Eve. I always felt terrible for them as kids
Yeah,
when I was a kid.
absolutely. Thank you so much for doing our little show. I'm delighted to talk to you. I have known your work for a long, long time. I don't think we've ever worked together, although I did some work with The Daily Show, but I don't believe we ever crossed paths.
I left in 2002.
Yeah, this would have only been like 5 years ago. So, yeah, definitely
No,
not.
so no, but it probably still like if you were in the building, it probably smelled great, and that was my the lingering aroma of me.
I don't know where. Can we start? Can we start with how on earth you got into this business? And then maybe we can
Uh,
segue eventually into the Jon Stewart Show because I used to watch that one as well.
yeah, that one was a super fun one. Okay, so I'll give it to you in a like the a condensed version, so I don't bore people to death. But I got into it sort of probably the most unique and original way that anybody ever has, which is I did a semester abroad my junior year in college in Siena, which is in Italy. And I became pretty fluent in Italian. And when I graduated from college, I had always wanted to go into TV or film, but I had this idea that you couldn't unless you knew somebody. So I didn't know anybody, but I knew Italian. And that seemed to be the thing that got me in because I was working as like a sort of a very glorified lackey for the mother of a boy I'd gone to nursery school with. So I guess I did have that connection. I was really compelling in the blocks building. And they marked me
You're
and
a
said, "We
builder.
got to hire this one when she learns how to talk." But so I heard there was an office of RAI, which is Italian National Television in New York, and I sent in a resume cold. This is the only time this has ever happened, probably in the history of the entertainment business. I sent in a resume, just to whom it may concern, and then it was like the joke we had in New York that you order Chinese food and as soon as you hang up, your doorbell rings
Yeah.
because I put the resume in the mailbox and then I got a call like, when can you start? And essentially, and I don't want to insult anybody who is Italian because I am Italian by, as I say, adottazione. I'm a fake American Italian. I love everything about the culture, but I also feel it gives me the leeway to be a little bit critical from time to time. And so the Italian television was state-run television, and everybody that worked in the office in New York was enjoying some form of nepotism. which meant that they didn't have a very strong work ethic. They were there for the free espresso and the free phone lines and, the 2-hour lunch followed by another espresso and then a nap. And then you would go home. And so the idea to Italian television that you could have someone who could speak their language but had an American work ethic was very appealing. So I started. I was like the assistant to the woman that was overseeing all production in the United States for Rome.
Whoa!
And
I mean, this sounds like a big deal.
it was amazing. The place was like a little microcosm of Italy. You had, people from the South, people from the North, it was very class-based. So like the president was nobility and had a ring with the family seal on his pinky. Like, do you have a family seal? No. I mean, this is just not something that happens to us.
No, we have no
and
crests.
He wore a cape. And then he had like a chauffeur who his job, other than driving him, was to take the cape off and fold it carefully and place it on a couch so no one could sit in the couch because the cape was there. And you would step off the elevator and there would be like a cloud of espresso fumes. And then you would hear a lot of people talking very loud and, of course, motioning with their hands. And it was hilarious. The receptionist was from the south of Italy. And I think she had been in the United States probably like 15 years, but her English was not so good. And they put her on answering the phones. So she would answer the phones. Recuperation, may I help you? Recuperation, good afternoon. And it was a mix of like Brooklyn and Southern Italian accent. And I once heard her say, "I'm sorry, he cannot come to the phone right now because he's not in his desk." And I was like, and then I heard her say once,
"Get him back in his desk."
"I'm sorry, he can't talk to you right now. He's in the bathroom." I'm like, "You're not supposed to say that." But I rose through the ranks very quickly. And after about 2 years, they threw me in so far over my head that it was hysterical. And they had me, who was like 23 years old, executive producing a 2-hour live special from Lincoln Center on the occasion of RAI being honored by the international arm of the TV Academy. And it involved recreations of the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria made out of carnations.
Oh,
we had to dismantle an Alfa Romeo. There were 2 chefs, which always works well. And one at the Rainbow Room, Tony May, and the other one, Giuliano Bugiali. And then there was like every star Italy just trotted out. So we had Carla Fracci, the ballerina. It was just crazy. And it was me.
It sounds crazy now in your career, let alone the first thing you ever did.
I don't know how I survived. But after that, I was like the James Bond of freelance producers for RAI. And I did all this fabulous stuff. And then somewhere along there, I decided, I heard this rumbling of this show that was on at 12:30. And it was with this guy named David Letterman. And 12:30 was so late, and there were no VCRs. So you had to actually stay up and watch it. There weren't going to be clips the next day on your phone.
No.
There weren't. Mobile phones had not even been invented yet.
Yeah, and you wanted to be relevant at the water cooler back, if there's a reference, but you had to know what happened last night.
Yeah, you totally did. Or in the case of RAI at the espresso machine. But
of course.
They don't drink a lot of water. But anyway, so I stayed up late one night and I watched Dave, and it was not an entertainment experience. It was a calling. I saw the show and I declared to nobody, I was alone, that I had to work there. They didn't know it yet, but I was going to work there. And I sort of launched this one young woman campaign, pulling every thread I could to get in. And I got to go to a taping because Italian TV had a deal with NBC, and I went to the taping, and I saw Morty, who would become my boss, Robert Morton. He was a segment producer at the time. And I remember thinking, I want to be that guy. and I
What
would.
what year was this about?
This would have been 85.
Okay, so Morty was just segment producing back then, right?
He was just like Barry Sands was the producer for like the first
Right,
year I
right,
was
right, right,
there.
right. Okay.
So I reached out to a couple of people and I didn't have any leads and it wasn't happening. And so I got offered a job for Italian TV. Sorry, I just knocked my computer, so I didn't have like an epileptic seizure. But
I was wondering. I'll take this moment to zoom in. It's all good.
there's a little bit of an earthquake here. No, it was just me knocking my screen, which is not good to do on this sort of situation. But anyway, so I took a job where I was the United States bureau for a show that is 6 hours long. 6 hours long.
What?
On every Sunday. It was a
weekly
wraparound for
6 hours. That's
hours.
ridiculous.
Huge with a giant studio audience. Like it was an institution. It is. It's
Holy
still
cow.
on. But now there's a lot more options. Then there were 4 channels, and we were 3 of them. But so they would have like a soccer game, a movie, and then studio segments woven around it. And so I sent Tony Robbins to Rome, and he walked on hot coals. The host of my show walked on hot coals. I had Uri Geller in New York. We did a satellite, and he ended up fixing
bent the spoons and everything, right?
Yeah. He was
Used
a
to be on
Mets
Johnny all the time.
Exactly.
Sure.
But I would later have him on Dave, but he came on to RAI and he was going to fix people's clocks. So he asked them to all bring their broken
Everybody
clocks.
bring in your broken clocks.
Put them near the TV. So you have this image of all of Italy scrambling for broken clocks.
Oh, wow.
And putting them next to the TV. So I had a part in fixing a very old grandfather clock belonging to Federico Fellini.
Wow.
That he basically brought it toward the thing. Anyway, it was celebrity junkets and satellites, and they would send me to the junkets and send me a list of questions that I would translate into English and ask the celebrities: Jane Fonda, Kevin Bacon, Jeff Bridges, Sylvester Stallone. And then I'd be off camera. And when they broadcast it, they would pretend it was live and they would just put a little, chyron in the corner that said in directa, which means live. But it wasn't live. They just put the letters on it and pretended.
What's kind of like these days? Everything's breaking news, and they just leave that up. They leave the chyron up all the time.
Oh, sometimes I'm going to kill my phone when it's like I get a news alert and it's like, eggplant is undervalued as a source of fiber. I'm like, that is not breaking news.
Don't
you do that.
Or just something so dated. The Lindbergh baby. I mean, something just totally not today.
It's so sad.
Yes, that's right.
Every time.
It's okay. They set up a GoFundMe. It's going to be all right.
It's going to be all right. But anyway, so, and then I was doing live satellites from all over the country that were ridiculous, like the Custer Battlefield at the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Little Bighorn. It's a field. And I get there and I'm like, what am I going to go? Like, the grass is here. There was absolutely nothing. So they had me pay a Native American shaman of some sort. And he did a ceremony. And that's what we went to. And it was just crazy.
It sounds like everything you were doing was so crazy and ridiculous. It was almost preparing you for that job that you declared that you were going to get.
Oh, yeah. I didn't notice it, and then it started happening. They started getting really fixated on what they called Americana, and what you and I would call freaks. But and
special interest stories.
Letterman, we would later call it human interest, which is sort of very
human interest stories.
Right. Human interest guests and human interest stories, and so I was sending swimming babies where they constructed like a swimming pool in the studio in Rome, and these babies from Syosset, Long Island, swam underwater through little rings. And I sent a guy who got into a rattle. He was from the Heart of Texas Snake Handlers organization, and he would get into a sleeping bag with 35 venomous rattlesnakes and not get hurt. But I had to send those to Rome. It was pre 9/11. There was a whole, it was Pan Am, doesn't exist anymore. And it was like serpent, venomous, and everything you had to do to get them on the plane. So it was snakes on a plane.
I have had
Before
it.
that was, yeah, I did when I sent them on the plane. But anyway, so one day they asked me to track down a 12-year-old whistling champion named Amy Rose, who's from somewhere in Tennessee. And I call the parents, and they say they have one tape. It's a cassette of this champion whistler. Like, they only recorded it on one device with one tape.
Only one time, yeah.
One time. And they had sent that tape. She's whistling all day long. They just didn't think of like maybe
Practicing
documenting
for
it.
years.
But we only recorded it that one time, and we sent the tape to a woman named Darcy at the Tonight Show. So all of a sudden, a light bulb goes off in my head, because Darcy had been one of the people that I had called. She was working at Letterman, and I had a very good friend who said, call my friend Darcy, and I called his friend Darcy, and she was no help at all. She said, Madeleine, you're not going to get a job at Letterman. Nobody ever leaves. I can't recommend you if I don't meet you, and I can't meet you because I'm getting married and moving to California. And that was the last I heard from Darcy until I called her up, trying to get a hold of this tape, the cassette tape of the 12-year-old whistling champ. And
that only she has.
Was very nice. I didn't say anything. And she was very nice. I just said, yes, Madeleine Smithberg from Italian TV. I worked for a show in Rome, and we're interested in sending Amy Rose to Rome to whistle for everybody. We have 6 hours to fill. And she said, well, Madeleine, what do you do?
People don't know how hard that is, Madeleine. People don't know how hard it is to fill an hour, let alone 6.
I know. Sometimes 3 minutes is interminable. All adorable people, though. You could never imagine a bunch of more. And I'm still really good friends with people that I worked with, that I see when I go to Italy sometimes. But anyway, so she's like, what do you do? And I go, well, I scour the country, among other things, and I find unusual stories. And she's like, oh, my God, we should become friends. We should become contacts. So we started exchanging ideas. And I never mentioned the how she had dissed me until, like, I had a couple of guests under my belt. I didn't want to make
By
her
the
feel
way, you ended up
uncomfortable.
working there. What she was saying was true. I mean, they did hire one within, and nobody ever left.
Yeah,
and
they only hired
it kind of was all accurate.
There was no way. I was never getting in. I defied sort of the laws of nature by landing it. So she gives me a karate chopping grandmother. I give her a nun who's a dwarf who races miniature horses, and we start talking. Then it's going to be a little personal, not as funny for you, but it's part of the story. So somewhere in there, I fall in love, and I meet this really cute architect named Sam Packard, and we fall madly in love, and we are dating. And they, at the end of the Domenica Inn, the show I was working for, they sent Sam Packard and I each business class tickets, like that would happen now, to go to Rome for the last show and the party. So we go to Rome. He had lived in Bologna and Venice and spoke Italian. It was like this crazy trip. And the host of my show gives us use of his house on the Mediterranean for 5 nights.
God. Beautiful.
We're having like a honeymoon, and I'm diving into the blue waters and eating all kinds of amazing food. And I go on. My parents just bought a little place in Tuscany, and they didn't speak Italian. So I went to help my parents buy toilets and bidets and faucets. And Sam went back to New York, and there was no internet. A phone call was like a year's salary. You'd only call someone.
Yeah.
If someone
long distance
dead.
Was like 30 miles away, let alone across the world.
Correct. So when you were out of touch. And so I was like on cloud 9 and floating around Tuscany, buying bidets with my parents, and which is a very romantic thing to do. Anyway, just imagine your dad like washing his ass as you're shopping. But
and I helped.
So I go back. I stayed 2 weeks, and I go home, and I get to my apartment in Greenwich Village, and Sam is nowhere to be seen. I'm a little bit perturbed, and I call him, and as I'm dialing, the rotary dial of the phone attached to the wall, just to carbon date it,
Got it right here.
I
Here we go.
There you go. Oh my God, you have it. Fuck, that one called Bangor, Maine, so many times. But anyway, I saw a note on my pillow from my roommate's mother, and it was like I just picked it up. I didn't like think about it. So I'm holding this piece of legal paper. I'm calling Sam. It's a visual hand thing. And he answers the phone. There's a long pause, which usually isn't leading to something you're going to want to hear. And
Yeah.
it's followed by "we have to talk," which is something you never want to
Oh my
hear.
gosh.
And then it was "I've gone back to Fran," which had been the ex-girlfriend. So I'm about to vomit. I'm about to faint. I dropped the phone, and in my mind, or at least in the movie rendition, it went down in slow motion because the cord had been wound.
Oh, you bet.
And those phones do that all the time. And I'm trying to catch my breath, and I don't know why, but I look at the piece of paper in my hand,
Oh my
and
God.
it says, "Call Darcy about a job at Letterman." So in one split second, my heart was broken and my dreams came true. And I never
Wow.
processed the heartbreak because I dove into getting the job, which I had to pitch like 30 segment ideas. I was the human interest
You're already
worker.
working.
And then finally I had a meeting with Dave. Didn't think about it. Life went on. 30 years later, Sam Packard finds me on Facebook, and now I live in Seattle, and we just got married on March 14th.
Holy moly.
I know.
Well, in the end, you got both.
I
Congratulations.
get anything, but this is a little bit of a 34-year gap.
Wow.
So I'm living proof, though, of one should never lose hope.
Oh, I love that. You gave me all the things. I just got all the things.
I know, the hair standing up and then it's my own
Yeah,
story, but
well,
it still goes.
you don't know me at all, but I'm like a really sentimental guy. I'm really emotional and stuff. So yeah, I love stories like that. And I could kind of tell when you were saying, I fell madly in love with this guy and his name, and I thought, well, this obviously ends better, or he's
This
dead.
has to be
It's one or the
important.
other.
Right. No, it's like what they say that, if you see a door in a play, someone's coming through it. Like, why
Yeah,
would
they
I
don't
tell
put
you
it
that?
right. It's not
There
decor.
would be no reason. It would be really awkward and weird. So I'd go to work at Letterman.
Wow.
And I was there for 6 years, and it was my graduate school. You couldn't mess up. Like, you just couldn't. I used to say that the clocks in Greenwich, England, where they sort of determine mean time and from which every other clock on planet Earth is set,
Is correct.
that those clocks get their information from when Dave loads the audience, because the audience would load at 5:30, and the audience would load not at 5:29, not at 5:33, but at 5:30. Like, it was just, the thing was just a well-oiled machine with no room for error. And my task was to look across America and occasionally Canada and one really hilarious person from England, and find people who had comedic potential but weren't aware of it. It couldn't be people that were trying to be funny.
Right.
They had to be funny in spite of themselves. And there was no internet. I read 35 local newspapers a day. My office was a train wreck. It looked like a hoarder's office, but that's just because every day 35 newspapers, 30 different magazines. I read, the Farmer's Almanac religiously. I knew what the rainfall was going to be before anybody else.
I was raised on the Farmer's Almanac. I love that thing.
I loved it. At Yankee Magazine, Texas Monthly, all these like crazy things. And then I knew every state fair, local fair, county fair, neighborhood, fair in America. And I had the craziest Rolodex, and I was in touch with every features reporter, both in print and on television across the country. And I would call them and make friends. And Huell Hauser was a sort of stringer for me.
One of the best hosts out there, sure.
The best ever. I mean, Huell Hauser and Charles
in that he was himself, in that he was that guy.
Totally that guy. But he would tell me about things that maybe I should look into. But I had people all over the country sending me, the bee people and just all kinds of stuff. And I knew I went to every circus. I went to every just convention. I got a toy fair.
Oh, I remember all that stuff.
It was just amazing. But it was like this giant, you're doing 5 shows a week. I think we were doing 5 shows a week. At some point it was 4, but
There was
mostly it
4
was
at
5.
one point, yeah.
Yeah, it was 4. It was 4 shows a week. They were an hour. And it's like this voracious animal that is, if you don't feed it, it's going to eat you. And so you never get ahead of it. You just
and the moment you finally get it and you put your feet up, you're like, oh, we got to do it again tomorrow.
Oh yeah, and so the good news is
from scratch.
Oh yeah, and the good news is no, failure stays with you. That 24 hours to mourn, and then everybody forgets it because there's like this group. It's herd amnesia.
That's a really good way to put it. That occurs on most of those shows, and I guess anything of that sort. That's a really good way to put it.
Herd. I just made that up.
Yeah, but I mean, you know how poignant it is. You know how good. Yeah. All right. Well, I am. If you couldn't tell by looking at what who you're talking to here, I am like, I was beyond a nerd. Of course, I went to tapings. I never got the job. I went a different route. But I wanted, like, what years were you there? I was there. I'm assuming you were at the old show, right?
I was at the old show.
Yeah.
I was there from 1986 to 1992, and my last night on late night was Johnny Carson's last night at the Tonight Show, and I'd like to say he kind of eclipsed my departure.
A little bit.
He had a better publicist. And I left to start. Somewhere along the line, I booked Kmar, The Magician, Jack Hanna.
I loved Kmar. Jack Hanna is my wife's absolute favorite.
He was amazing. From that show. Jack was absolutely amazing, and the people that came with it, like a whole team of them would come, and it was so cool because we could play with the animals. So I've held tiger cubs, baby chimpanzees. I went to the Columbus Zoo and I got to go in the cage, in the pen with the cheetahs. I mean, I was treated like royalty. I was on the stage for Dwight Yoakam concert with the governor of Ohio. He's like, I'm the governor.
They gave you the key to the city, I bet.
I booked Jack on Letterman, and he was like, oh, gesticulating, genuflecting to me and all that kind of stuff. So it was amazing. I mean, it was so hard, but so gratifying. And I was lucky because I always had a really good relationship with Dave. He didn't know quite what to do with me, but I amused him. So I would tell him funny stories and that would make him laugh. And I wish I had thought of this. I have this great picture of when he retired at the party. He was hugging me because we always had this thing where I hugged him. No, everyone else was too scared, but I would just be like, I don't care. And I would just give him a big giant hug and go, I love you, David Letterman. And he would say, I love you, Madeleine Smithberg. And when he retired, they threw a party at the Friars Club, and it was rumored that he wasn't coming. And then he showed up. And
I remember seeing the pictures. He had the Foo Fighters shirt on and the whole bit.
Yep. And he opened his arms, and I got the hug, and I said, I love you, David Letterman. He said, I love you, Madeleine Smithberg. How's that boy of yours? And I said, he's great. And then he went, okay, get her off of me.
Oh, that warms my heart. What a great story. You probably are aware of the Don Giller YouTube channel, I'm assuming.
Oh, yes. Don
All right,
and I were very good friends.
So you became public again with the Husky Idler incident.
Husky Idler.
Was it Lori Diamond who was
Lori Diamond ran the marathon. And I was told that it was a good idea to bring people bananas. And so I waited for her at mile 23 for hours.
This is David Letterman's assistant at the time, for anybody who has no idea who the hell we're talking about.
Right. Yeah, it was Dave's assistant. We called her Diamond. And we were pals, and so I was supporting her, and I had this banana, and I waited, and she runs by, and I give it to her. Well, that was, the marathon was on a Sunday or on the weekend, and the Monday afterwards, they had footage of her, and he goes, and you see me running in and handing her a banana.
Well, but
And
it's
Dave,
mid race, right? It's not. I mean,
yeah,
maybe it's towards the end. I'm assuming, but it was not after the finish line. Everyone was still
no, no,
running.
no. This was to give her energy, to give her potassium,
Right.
to like take her home. Some people gave water, but I was like, I'm gonna do a banana. And so Dave starts making fun of me. He goes, well, you're just running along, and then all of a sudden you're attacked by and I'm backstage, and he says,
What
a
were you in the
husky.
hallway, in the green room? Where were you?
Yeah, I think I was in the green room,
All right. You don't
but
know this
there's a
about me.
monitor.
I worked on Conan, so I worked in that same studio for years and years
Oh,
after.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it was the green room, the
Yeah.
tiniest green room in show business, and
It was. It was half a green room.
it was really not even green. It was just, yeah. And the seats were very narrow. It
Yeah, it
wasn't
was bench
comfortable. There was no
seating in a long,
food.
narrow, weird thing.
Yeah, yeah. It was like a subway. But anyway, it was what it was. But I was in the green room watching the show, and he calls me a husky idler. At this point, I've been there a while, and I feel comfortable. I never, ever would have done this in the first 3 years of my tenure there. And I just opened the door to the studio, and I went, husky idler, and he was like, "Oh no, Madeleine!" And he came over and just, gave me a bear hug, but I pushed him away because I was pretending to be really angry, but I wasn't. It was just sort of funny. And
Oh
so, yeah, that
gosh.
was like a claim to fame. I have so many,
It
but
was. It
somewhere
was the
along the line,
What I saw in
yeah,
that clip, which is what I think delighted everyone else, was there you could see a genuine discomfort in Dave. Dave saw that he potentially had hurt your feelings. I felt like from when I watched this clip, it looked like, oh, you might be playing it up a little bit. Yes, it might have a little bit, but I'm going to go do my thing and whatever. But it seemed to me like, oh gosh, I really put my foot in my mouth here and hurt somebody I care about's feelings, and
yeah,
I really, we're going to get through this together, but I really I don't care for this situation, and he was visibly shaken,
he
which
was,
is
but at
cool
the
because it's
same
hard to
time,
flap Dave.
which is almost impossible, which is why so many of my segments were the magical ones, because that's where he got flapped. So but I think that he also is a comedy genius, and he realized the comedy potential, and him acting embarrassed was going to get him
Yeah,
more
absolutely.
mileage in terms of just the discomfort, and you always play to the discomfort. But what was so fabulous about my
By
my
the way,
little
we have a
domain?
blue door solely for that purpose. That's why we have this.
Oh my! Okay, you are crazy. That is so cool. I really want to know, but I'm sure you've told the story 1,000 times of how you got it. But what
What's
did
that?
you do
Oh,
for Conan?
I was a I I have told all this stuff a million times.
Yeah,
I was
you
just
don't
a
have to.
production assistant in at NBC, and I was doing my apprenticeships. I was a terrible student in high school, so my junior and senior year, the school set up internships for me. At the first year was like at the local place in Connecticut, and then by the way, I didn't tell you this. I grew up in the same town Dave used to live in too. So when he was on the air telling all these stories and whatever, I'm one of the kids who's just like, hey, he's talking about the guy at the grocery store. He's talking about the guy at the gas station, all that
Oh,
stuff.
that's hilarious. Is it Greenwich or no?
I was in Wilton, right on the
Darrington?
border of New Canaan. He was
Wait,
on in New Canaan, right on
beginning.
the border of Wilton. So we were
Yeah, 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 yeah,
opposite
yeah.
towns, but through the woods right
So
there.
we call that the inner city. It's
It was rural. It was rural.
very beautiful.
But yeah, so I worked on everything in the building, really. But I started at Conan, and Rosie O'Donnell was there at the time, and Saturday Night Live, Dateline when it first started, all
It
that stuff.
is an amazing building, 30 Rock, uh, because so much is happening in the building. You've got the news, you have the Today Show, you have Saturday Night
Yes.
Live. We used to see on our monitors, we had the in-house feed, and I think it was Thursday, the musical guest would rehearse,
All day long.
and you would just run down, you would go down one elevator, up another, and you could stand in the back of the studio and hear, Pearl Jam. It was just
We used to do the
amazing.
same thing. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I remember
we weren't
during
alone. I
the
mean, everybody in the building kind of would sort of congregate if you saw the feed and could get away for
yeah,
15
no, it was
minutes.
just a perk. It was a perk of working in that building, and the building itself is so beautiful and historical. And then
Oh,
Christmas comes, and the Christmas tree goes up, and then it becomes hell on earth. You couldn't go get lunch because there were just so many people. So Dave would go on the air and say, "People, it's just a tree. There is nothing to see. It is just like the tree that you will have in your living room. Stay home. Do not waste your time."
I
To
remember
try to
one year
keep
he told
you
everybody,
away.
"Yep, they put it up this weekend and they took it down. Took it down on Monday. Nope. So don't think about driving
Gone.
into the city. There's nothing to see. Don't come in."
Hilarious. But I loved it. And you would go to the commissary, and there would be Al Roker getting, a tuna
Literally every day.
sandwich.
Same here. Same here.
Yeah.
Do you
And
remember Spike Ferriston from that time, or just in
of
general?
course, I remember Spike
He
Ferriston.
he was a guest here last week, and we were talking.
Oh,
We had
really?
very similar experiences of, sure, we all wanted to work for Dave or Saturday Night Live or something, but once you actually get there in that building, there is an energy that is indescribable, or at least there was then. This
It
live
was.
television, this broadcasting, this, like, we are the antenna for the rest of the world.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. And I really feel like beyond fortunate to have been able to work there for 6 years and have it be my reality for 6 years and
Yeah.
never really get used to it or tired of it. So one time I do this segment, I had gone to this ties into this. I had gone to the Texas State Fair, and I found this man. He was Scottish, and he had border collies that were so well trained that they could do incredible things herding sheep. And I knew that Dave would love the idea of border collies herding sheep. So I booked him, and but we had to he couldn't bring the sheep on the airplane. He brought the dogs, and so I had to find local sheep. And the sheep that I ended up getting weren't really
I'm
used
just
to being
laughing at
herded by
we've got
border
cross
collies.
unions with our we've got cross unionization with our sheep here.
I got the wrong sheep. So we're rehearsing, last minute sort of rehearsal, and we were practicing what we're going to do. And the bit is that the dogs are going to herd the sheep out of the studio, down the hall, and onto the to the ground floor, and they're going to get in a taxi. They're going to go to LaGuardia. I mean, really, they were just going around the block.
But
But
regardless,
yeah,
everything you said until LaGuardia sounds impossible.
it happened. It all happened. The LaGuardia was the only thing. They just went around the block. But anyway, so these sheep are very unruly, and it's getting late. And the audience is going to get loaded because Greenwich needs to know what time it is at 5:30. And so
Nice callback.
I so they go out of the studio. So far, the plan is working. But instead of turning right to go toward the elevators, they go straight. And someone has opened the door, and they would go right into the set of Live at 5, which is the local news program that shot across the hall.
Right,
And
directly
all
across, and it was literally live in the tri-state area from 5 to 6 o'clock, which is
correct,
coincidentally your first half hour.
correct. And the sheep go in, and Sue Simmons was the anchor.
I love her.
And oh, she's amazing. I don't know if
Yeah,
she's
she
still
and
even
Jack
on. I
Cafferty
haven't
were
looked.
great.
Yeah, phenomenal. And she, all of a sudden, these giant sheep come, glumping, whatever sheep do as a movement, into the set. And she's just like, "Oh, Dave, what's going on now?" So that's just like a little illustration of life at 30 Rock.
Ugh,
But
it was
we used
so
to get to go
magical.
to the Saturday Night Live, like after parties. We never wanted to go to the tapings because who wants to go to a taping of a show when you work at a show? You don't want to sit in the audience, but we would wait and watch it at home and then go to the parties and hang out with Al Franken. Like, you never wanted to sit next to Al Franken because he talked so much. But now in retrospect, I'm like, That was Al Franken. Like, why didn't I want to sit with them? But so it was, and then they would have their end of the season party down in, it wasn't the ice skating rink anymore. It was just the outdoor restaurant, and it was just, you're in the center of Manhattan, the
Yeah.
heart of the world, and everywhere you look is a famous person who you admire because they're hilarious, and it's open bar. I mean, come on, how great is that for someone who
You're
was
describing what those
28
are some
years
of my
old?
favorite memories also. In fact, the night I decided to move to Los Angeles was a Saturday Night Live season finale wrap party at the whatever the
That's
Metropolitan
hilarious.
Museum. Yeah. It was totally fun.
That's hilarious. It's
I
yeah.
could talk about 30 Rock with you for days and days and days. But I do want to talk about both Mad in the Kitchen and a little bit about the Daily Show and also Jon Stewart because I used to watch the Jon Stewart Show. Were you on? Did you do the MTV one or the syndicated one?
Oh yeah, both. I produced both of those. Okay, so they're all going
Whoa.
to tie together, and I'll try to make it tight because how much more time do we have?
No, no, it's we're on your timetable, yours and
Okay,
Greg.
okay, okay, okay. Call back. So I somewhere along during my time at Letterman, there had been a kind of, we don't book chefs.
Hmm.
And then one day we had a guest fallout. The lead guest, which means the first guest, the one that does two segments at the beginning of the show, which we call the top of the show because we're in show business. And someone canceled, like there was a death in the family. And it was 11 in the morning and we needed a guest for that night. And that had never happened. Like we had been the night before, 11, 12, panicking, but day of had not really ever happened. And everybody was on, red alert. So
And
we
Marv
got this.
wasn't available.
No, no, Marv wasn't. Regis, for some reason, we were just like striking out all the kind of go tos. Even Kmart was booked.
Whoa. Thanks
I
to
know.
you, by the way.
Oh,
Thanks
he
to
had
you,
just,
Madeleine Smithberg.
no, he made his career. But maybe we had just had him on or something like that. So we got this thing called Celebrity Service, and it was a printed piece of paper. Ha ha ha! How adorable! And it had a list of every celebrity that was in New York, what they were doing, and a contact number for them. So I see that Wolfgang Puck, the chef, had been on Good Morning America. So I called Good Morning America and I talked to the booker. It's like booker to booker.
Yeah.
And
How was it? How was he?
oh, so it was a woman, and she was super nice. She said, "Madeline, I would love to help you, but he does all his. I don't. He was on this morning, yes, but he does all his own arrangements. We just, give him a stipend. So I don't know what hotel."
Oh wow.
So I called. I sort of used common sense, and I just started calling hotels. And on the third one, I found him at like the Ritz Carlton. And they sent me up to, the phone call up to his room, and I got him on the phone. And he said, "Oh, sure, I'll be there at 2 o'clock." So
So 3 hours
Wolfgang
from
Puck,
now. Wow.
yeah, yeah, that was Wolfgang, just the greatest. And he came on, and it was, I don't know, it was a clip that ended up in a lot of anniversary show packages. He brought a truffle, and he asked Dave what it smelled like.
Oh, I
And
remember this.
yeah, and Dave said, I don't know. And Wolfgang Puck says in his Austrian accent, "It smells like sex." And Dave goes, "I don't know what you're doing."
Yeah. Geez, what
And
have you
so
been
it was
doing?
like,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Just like a classic Dave, boom. So all of a sudden, the floodgates are open, and now I can book chefs. Now we have to go back a little bit, which is I have been obsessed with food since I was 12 years old and my parents took me to Europe. I ate something in a restaurant in Brittany, France, when I was 12, which was quail with grapes that sort of like changed my life. And just like watching Dave was a calling, when 12-year-old me ate this caille au raisin, I heard opera music,
Whoa.
and it was very cinematic. But I had this revelation that you could do really incredible things with food, and I basically taught myself how to cook. Like my parents got me the young French chef, and I made my way through and I made every single recipe. And then I just worked my way up and I became obsessed. And then I studied in Italy and got more obsessed and learned more. And it was the type of thing where I worked in television and that was my job, but my passion was food. And I would cook for all of my friends. I would, it just was like a part of who I was and always has been. And I never thought about it that much. It just was there. I would wake up every day of my life planning I was going to cook for dinner. And I still do that. And it's really annoying, but it just is there. It's a burden and a blessing, and that's how it is. But so now all of a sudden I'm booking chefs on Letterman, and I am getting private cooking lessons backstage as we're prepping the cooking segments.
By the way, the cooking segments were my favorite. They were the most fun thing to watch Dave interact with, whether it was actually Julia Child or, and by the way, I went to only 2 tapings in that old studio, both of which had cooking segments.
See, we really
Bobby Flay and somebody else, I can't remember.
Yeah, no, it once because Dave was great with them. And the thing about a cooking segment, which of course is what I'm doing now, but it's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. So it's got that sort of Aristotelian structure built in. Like in the end, you've got something, you taste it. There's a process, but there's another personality for him to interact with, but they have a job to do. So it takes the pressure off of the comedy and the conversation. And so
interesting.
Not only am I, or is Jacques Pepin, Pierre Freinet teaching me how to truss a chicken, and Julia and I became like top chefs in the world are coming through, and I get to hang out with them backstage and structure their segments. I'm producing their segments, and then I have this amazing thing where I can eat in any restaurant in New York that I want to, just if I call them up and say I'm interested in their chef. And I went to Le Cirque, where a very famous chef named Daniel Boulou, who now is Restaurant Daniel, he's one of the top chefs in the world, he's French. He was at Le Cirque, and I and my ex-husband are sitting there, and courses and courses and courses are coming out. And in a restaurant like that, it's like a choreography with the waiters, with the trays, and they're circling around. It looks like a marching band routine, and they put the plates down and you have utensils. I'm like, why do I have a trowel? Like, I know they're going to laugh at me, but what am I supposed to do with this thing? Like, you have like 10 different utensils. And I just felt like, the Beverly Hillbillies or something. Because I was like, are we going to go digging? Like, why do we have this trowel? But I think it was a fish knife. But anyway.
I was going to say, by the way, I don't know. I'm also uncultured, apparently. I don't know the answer to what this device is you have.
Who would? It's
maybe
the
little butter patter thing?
No. That was a totally separate one. There were like 3 of those of different lengths, but then there was a thing that literally looked like
how silly of me.
And I could see you eat fish with the sauce. But anyway, I was terrified of messing up and being called out, being exposed for my lack of culture. But so they were sending out so much food that the man at the next table asked the maitre d' who I was.
Oh, wow.
That man was Henry Kissinger.
I can just picture him doing the blot first. Who is she?
Who is this woman that is getting all this, does not know what the trowel is for?
So you got outserved.
Are you
outserved, Henry? Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I can't say that right. We'll figure out the math another time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's got a Nobel Prize. Whatever. I got the extra chicken dish. But anyway, so I'm booking all these chefs. I'm going to all these restaurants. It's just insanity. It's total insanity. I'm not even 30 years old yet, and okay, so I come up with an idea for a show. And I'm not going to even go into that really much, but Dave comes on board as my executive producer, and we end up selling the show to Fox. Basically, it's what I do, the people I do, but in their elements, because it all got inspired to me because there was this woman who spent her entire life developing a self-cleaning house. Her name was Frances Gabe, and it was ridiculous. All the floors are slanted because they have drains in them. Everything's coated in plastic. Like, she was onto the Roomba before anybody else.
Sure.
But you would think, if she spent so much money, it was just like, Frances, hire a maid. Like, but she was so obsessed. But you couldn't really bring her into the studio because you had to see her in the house. And I would later
the house is the thing, right?
That's the thing. So A. Whitney Brown would do that piece on the Daily Show in year two, and he took a shower with his suit on, in
you're serious? He did this actual piece at the woman's house.
I got to have closure with Frances Gabe.
Cool.
I sent Whit.
That's so fun.
Yeah, I sent Whit to go experience it. But anyway, I developed the show. It was called Offbeat America, and Dave had come on as executive producer, and we sold it to Fox. And then Dave fired his agent and hired CAA and Mike Ovitz. And they could have asked NBC, look, we're going to do this show with Fox, because NBC had passed. But Mike Ovitz said, no, I don't want to be beholden to them for anything. So my show died. But based on how easy it had been, like, you come across a woman with a self-cleaning house. You have an idea that maybe there's a TV show out there. You write a proposal, and then you give it to Jack Rollins, who is Dave's executive producer and manager, and Woody Allen's manager, and one of the all-time greats of greats of greats. And Jack brings it to Dave, and Dave says, absolutely. And next thing you know, you're having cherries at the, duck with cherries at the Four Seasons, and you've got a green light from Fox. It was so easy that it gave me really false confidence. And I have a dear friend who's still my dear friend, Elise Roth, just spoke to her this morning. And she was a producer in commercials and worked for the film unit at SNL for a while too.
Oh.
But she's like, we had done the Offbeat America thing together. And she was saying, come on, leave Letterman, and you and I will start a company, and we'll develop TV shows about food. And we'll do television shows about food that are funny and entertaining, not necessarily cooking, but eating. And so she convinced me. I retired, but I gave 6 months notice. Dave was an angel and was like, the door's open for you anytime. I remember he said, you have good ideas. He said, so few people have good ideas, but you have good ideas, and you're going to end up with anything you dream of, the house in Bel Air, any of it. And they would later, in parentheses, Dave would ask me, when they hired Craig Kilborn to go do the Late Late Show, they asked me to go produce it. And Dave and Rob Burnett, who was the executive producer and ran Worldwide Pants, called me in. And I would end up at that moment, I'm skipping over the Jon Stewart Show, but I didn't know what to do, because I had gone through hell trying to have a child, and I finally had adopted my son, and he was 3 months old, and my parents were like really upset, because I was thinking of moving from Chelsea to the Upper West Side, which, if you don't know New York, it's like a 15-minute subway ride. But my parents were like, no, don't take the grandbaby away from us. And so now I'm being asked to move to Los Angeles. And I don't really know what to do, because I like Craig, and I think that I've worked really well out of room. I don't know that I would do an hour with him. And so I called John, who I had done the Jon Stewart Show with and was very good friends with, and said, what do I do? And he said, okay, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. John's very methodical. And he said, are you proud of The Daily Show? And I said, yeah, I'm really proud of it. I feel like we've found a new way to deliver comedy and to both, sort of do social commentary and impart information and make it hilarious. And I feel like we're really in new ground. And he went, And then he said, do you like the people you work with? I said, I love them. They're adorable. It's like an extended family. He said, are you excited going to work every day? And I said, I am so excited going to work every day to figure out what we're going to do with the hand that the world has dealt us. And And he told me later that in the process of having those conversations with me, he decided to take the job, which had been offered to him already. But it was offered to him in the beginning before Craig, but he was too fractured at that moment because of the Jon Stewart Show getting canceled. So anyway, so let's go back now. I leave Letterman. Me and Johnny retire.
That's right. You and Johnny retire on May 22nd, 1992.
1992. And I form Half Baked Productions with my friend Elise Roth, and we conceive of a show and shoot a pilot for something called Eating New York. And it's pretty crazy because the guy that was our shooter, our DP, would go on to be the DP and then the director of The Sopranos and Mad Men. His name is Phil Abraham. He was my friend Diane Collier's husband, and he just bought a new camera and wanted to play with it.
Wow.
Our writer was Kevin Kay, who would become like, huge head honcho or second to head honcho at Nickelodeon, and the president of Spike, and is just one of the greatest guys in the world. And then there was me. So it was kind of like this pilot, which had all these like weird seeds of, amazing greatness baked into it, so to speak, half baked.
Hey.
So anyway, I didn't even know that. So we shoot the pilot. It's really funny, and it looks great. And it ends up on the desk of this woman named Eileen Katz, who's running original programming for Doug Herzog over at MTV. And she's got a stack of tapes, and we're talking 3/4-inch tapes.
Yeah,
that's what they were, and they're so big. It's like half a phone book.
Heavy, yeah.
And the machine, when you put them in, does this kind of Rube Goldberg thing where it goes like, it's like Brazil, the movie, Terry Gilliam. So she's got this giant stack of tapes on her desk that people have sent, and she can't even see the door anymore because she's being like, completely buried in 3/4-inch tapes. And she sees Eating New York. Now, she's a foodie. Like, foodies it's like a cult. We don't talk to you about the fact that we're foodies, but we're just foodies. And if we meet each other, we, have a secret handshake. So she was a foodie, and she pops the cassette in. It goes, and she, it's like a Willy Wonka thing. She watches it, and she's like very impressed. It's stylish. It's funny. Food is hilarious. And then she looks at the resume, which was mine, inside the jacket, the sleeve of the case, and it says Letterman. And
she's got another job for you.
She has another job for me. And so I'm like Al Pacino in The Godfather. Like, I thought I was leaving late night comedy and going into this passion of food.
Follow my dreams.
Follow my dreams. But instead, I got pulled back in.
Pull me back in.
And we did the Jon Stewart Show. And the Jon Stewart Show to MTV was,
That's when I found it. That's when I found it.
Yeah.
You guys were talking to you guys were talking to me and my friends. It was great.
Yeah. That's what we were. And we had the knock hockey table.
Thank you. Nobody remembers that. I have said, oh my God, Madeleine, my wife is going to be so delighted that you just said that. Anytime this ever comes up, all I say is, you remember you had the knock hockey coffee table? Nobody knows what the hell I'm talking about.
We weren't going to give them a desk. They didn't want a desk. And
it was
then
almost
we realized,
like car chairs, like really weird kind of seating.
Yeah,
really
they actually were. They were seats from a car, like a Camaro or something. And John didn't want a desk, so we go to the first rehearsal, and we realize he has nowhere to put his, we're trying to be so different, but he doesn't want a desk, and so now he's got nowhere to put. He's got a cup of coffee and a bunch of blue cards in his hand, and so that's when we get a knock hockey table. We're like, okay, you don't want a desk, but you're gonna have to have something.
Something, yeah. Even Arsenio had the ottoman at the time.
There was an ottoman. But I can't remember where the knock hockey table went in relation to the ottoman. Now you're probably
no. I don't. I mean, no. You guys had the knock hockey table, but even Arsenio had an ottoman. I mean, there was always something in front of.
Okay, Arsenio. Yeah. You need it. It's just there's a reason why everybody has a desk. You've got one.
There's a lot of stuff.
I'm
There's a lot of stuff.
You have your business, especially and blue cards will never go away.
That's right.
So anyway,
still to this day.
It's the tools, and the 3x5 colored index cards are the sort
On the
of
wall.
building block of every television show I've ever produced or worked on.
I wonder if they're still doing
So,
that to this day, because we are.
oh
There's
yes, they
still a
are.
board on the wall.
There's always a board. There's always a board, and it has to be because the board changes, and whatever board is in the executive producer, there'd be the script supervisor's job to make sure that everyone else's boards,
Looked like
mirrored
that
it.
one.
Yeah,
That was
and then
Greenwich
there'd be
Standard
a
Time for the
printout
show.
version of it too. There'd be a printout it grid, but it was moving so much that the printing out, you would have so many versions of a piece of paper that the board is really, and you can sit and look at the board and in 3 dimensions kind of figure out what you're going to do. I miss having a board. I do.
I
It's
like
the only
moving things
thing.
on the board.
I
Yeah, that's
love
close.
it.
It's not quite right, but if I move this to here, that totally works.
There's a show, but what are we going to put in? Do we need a bumper there? Yeah. So we were at where was I? We're doing the Jon Stewart Show. We're at MTV, and it's magical. We do, as opposed to the 4 hours a week I've been doing at Letterman, we're doing 4 half hours, which we're shooting in 2 days. So we shot on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 2 shows, and because it was MTV, we had a band on every single show. And every
Oh, a
Thursday,
musical guest, not just your house
yeah.
band. A music. Oh, whoa.
Oh
That's.
no, there was no house band. We had a musical guest on every single show, like
Oh,
everybody you
that's
can imagine you'd
right.
ever want to see. It was
That's
MTV.
totally right. I'm remembering that all now. They had like the house band setup, but that was just always every day there was a different. Oh, that's
There
right.
was a
And then
different
the
band
house
every
music was actually
day.
canned music. That's right.
Yeah. We had our little theme song. But no, there was a band on every single show, and then every Thursday we would have a rap party. We shot at a place called National Studios on 42nd and like 11th. And we would go across the street to this place called the West Bank Cafe, where there would be a buffet, an open bar, every show. Now that would never happen again. I
Not
mean,
from the
this was
restaurant. You mean the show put that on? The production put that on?
every day every show
Whoa.
we had a rap party with
Yeah.
the
No.
people
No.
from the record companies, with the bands would be hanging out,
Oh,
whatever
because it was
celebrity was
MTV.
there.
They were almost using the show as an expense account, almost.
No, every show had that at MTV. It was just part of the culture. It was a very party culture, and they didn't pay anybody anything, but they gave them all these fabulous perks,
I see.
and it was just a write off for them. But that would never happen. Like I work on shows now or the shows I worked on most recently, it's like it's not going to happen.
No,
I
you
mean,
paperwork to fill the water bottle. It's ridiculous.
Exactly. You need to fill out a rec. It has to be approved by 18 people in finance. And everything just got leaner and leaner and leaner and leaner. And people get more uptight and whatever. So I have such magical memories of that time. So we did 2 seasons at MTV. And then Arsenio Hall ended. Right before that happened, the merger of Viacom and Paramount CBS
Yep.
happened. And there had been an article written about the Jon Stewart Show, or about Jon himself, that made the cover of New York Magazine. And it was a picture of Jon, and it said, "The man who should be Conan," because
Yeah.
Jon had been up for late night and didn't get it. And Conan, I love Conan. I know a ton of people that work there, and I'm, he's the best. But at that time in the beginning, there was a lot of skepticism about him because he was a writer, he wasn't a performer. It took him a little while to
I
sort of
was there
find his,
at this time in the beginning, and they were getting picked up by the week. I mean,
yeah.
it was ugly there in the beginning, before Conan was Conan.
Yeah. It took him a minute to get comfortable, and then he got really comfortable. But so that someone at Paramount, who was the syndicator for Arsenio, came across that New York Magazine
Did I lose you? You still there? I'm not sure what happened. We lost her. You still there? Maybe her battery died. All right. Well, this should interesting. Never had this happen before. Well, maybe Madeline will come back. In the meantime, let me tell you about Mad in the Kitchen, Madeleine's new show she's hosting. She is on YouTube. Mad in the Kitchen on YouTube. She's cooking and hosting, and it's a lot of fun. She does it from all over. Sometimes she's in the kitchen, backyard. It's really fun. I would definitely check it out, Mad in the Kitchen. And in the meantime, I'm going to tell you that we're... Let's see, are we still even here? I don't know what's going on. Could you guys see me? So funny. Oh, well. Anyway, in that case, we'll probably just wrap it up because I can't tell what's going on here, but it seems as though everything's frozen. So I love you at home. Please love one another. Matt. Oh, here we are. Now we're back. Boy, this is weird. Everything froze up. Well, thanks for going through that with me then. And I'll try and see, get Madeleine back here. This is the ones and zeros world. Oh, she is here. Yeah. Boy, that was weird. Hi.
Yeah, no, I just...
was that your internet or mine that crapped out?
I think it was yours.
I don't know what happened. Anyway, what were you saying? We were in the middle of Jon Stewart. I remember that.
Okay, so...
And while we were gone, by the way, I told them all about Mad in the Kitchen and how they should watch it on YouTube and pretty much all we talked about.
Perfect. Yeah, madinthekitchen.com or just Mad in the Kitchen on YouTube. The most important thing they need to do is they need to watch an entire video, which will not be hard because they're very entertaining, and then they must subscribe. Subscribers are the currency right now for me, and that would make it great. Anyway, so the Jon Stewart Show was one of those, once again, just magical place and time things where everybody on that show went on to some form of greatness. And our director was Beth McCarthy, who would be the director.
I've worked with her.
Beth McCarthy Miller, who would be the director of Saturday Night Live for 10 years. Steve Higgins, who is now Jimmy Fallon's sidekick, who became a producer at SNL, was our head writer, the greatest guy in the world. David Tell
with segments in the audience or whatever. So great.
Yeah, he's an angel, like one of the good guys. And a bunch of the writers went there. A bunch of people went out to California to be sitcom writers and were never heard from again, but did have fabulous houses. And then I would take the remaining stragglers and bring them with me to start the Daily Show. And I called it a yogurt culture, because it was kind of like the energy of what had been the Jon Stewart Show came with me to Comedy Central. And I was essentially recruited by Doug Herzog to create a daily show for Comedy Central, and I had no interest. I was trying to become pregnant, and I would eventually adopt my baby boy. But there were 2 really miserable years in there, and I just didn't want to be on Strip or every night TV. But Doug was relentless.
We talked about the amnesia.
Yeah, you forget every day. You have to. It's like giving birth, I imagine. That if anyone remembered what it was really like, the species would die out. So it's the same thing there. So he went after me for many years. No, like 6 months. And I kept saying, no interest. And then Liz Winstead was my neighbor, and I had hired her to be a segment producer on the Jon Stewart Show. And she and I, one night, way too late, came up with a funny idea, and we pitched it to now both Doug and Eileen had left MTV. That's Doug Herzog and Eileen Katz, and they'd gone to Comedy Central. And they had tried to get me to be the head of original programming. They they just wanted me around. And so Liz and I pitched them a show, and they went, yeah, sure, and set us up in a room with Elise Roth, who was still my business partner at the time. And had us develop our little show, but meanwhile, every, as if on command, every couple of weeks, Doug would come up to me and go, "What are you doing? You got to do this daily show. That's what I need you for." And I was like, "Doug, I don't want to do a daily show. I've told you this." And that was like this just ongoing sort of like dance. And then one day, I'm coming back from like the restroom, and he says, he kind of pushes me up against the wall, not in a Me Too way, we're buddies and friends and like brothers, and says, "Madeleine Smithberg, what are you thinking? You're in there developing a show I can't afford to make. Uh, I need you to do this daily show. It's the job you were born to do.
Oh boy.
I'm going to give it all of my production budget and all of my promotional budget. You don't have to do a
Oh my.
pilot. The show will stay on for a year." And I said,
This is a lot.
"Okay." I said, "Okay." And that's how it happened. I walked into the office where the
You said, okay,
cards
I'll do
were,
it.
yeah.
Okay.
I said, "Yeah," if you put it that way. And so I walked back in the office where the cards are on the wall for the show we were developing. And I say, "Okay, you guys are going to take the cards down. The plan is changing." And I got a lot of pushback initially, and then acquiescence. And so we started developing a daily show for Comedy Central.
Wow.
And the rest, as they say, is history. But it wasn't like we had this clear vision. It's like that game of elephant where you're like, does it have a little tail? Does it have a trunk? And you arrive at the elephant so we were like, okay, we know it's topical. We know it's not pretendy. We know it's not funny characters. But what do we know it is? We know that it's, topical. We already said that. You said that. And then we kept on hiring people. And each person that we would hire would bring a different vantage point and point of view. And finally, we hired Brian Unger, who was the original field correspondent. And he had been working for CBS News. He had been my intern at Letterman, and he had been Liz's boyfriend. But he was now at CBS and working for Connie Chung, and disgusted by television network news, just so fake, pretendy, self-absorbed, that when Brian came on, the conversation kind of amplified, and there were all these 24-hour news channels popping up every day. Dateline NBC was on 5 nights a week.
Yep.
And one day we were in a meeting, and it was like this aha moment of all the aha moments. And I don't remember who said it, but it was just somebody said, "What if we pretend we're them?" And that's how it happened.
And the rest is history, really.
The rest is history. We will pretend that we are the media, and then we can make fun of both the media and the stories that they're covering.
What was the year the Daily Show started?
Was it 96?
That sounds right to me. That was a very, very pivotal year
I
for
was
me.
there
That sounds right to
7 years,
me.
and I mean, I was there for 7 years, but I worked, almost a year before it launched. It was like 7 months before it launched. We were just developing it, and yeah, and that was kind of an incredible. Of course, it was an incredible ride, and it was also a lot of fun. And in the beginning, I never took it home with me. It was just like,
Really?
we played around because we didn't.
Was it because you weren't attached to it?
No, I was totally attached to it, but I knew it was there. We had a year. We didn't have to do a pilot. It wasn't that like
Oh,
fighting
I
for your
see what
life
you mean.
feeling.
I see what you mean.
And because we had so much creative freedom, like we never got notes. The only note we ever got from Comedy Central was more pop culture, and we would just ignore it. I got to hire Stephen Colbert and Steve Carell without any network approval.
Isn't that something?
I set it up so that oh my God. Can you imagine?
It's the approval process
The
again.
executive
It's
producer
approval
of
by
the show
committee.
just hiring a correspondent. It's like elephant by committee. It was such wonderful times. And if you talk to Doug Herzog and ask him what his favorite time of his entire career in television was, he'll say the first year of The Daily Show.
Wow. So
Because we were making magic, and the thing is, that part of the show has been, it's the eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. It's been just erased because Jon just didn't want anyone to think about it. And so there never are clips shown. They're not available.
Yeah, that's
It's
so funny.
no one ever talks about it. They sort of play it down, and it was like a silly little show, and it wasn't. It has
No.
all the bones. When I watch Trevor Noah to this day, I see the format that I created. A Moment of Zen was my cat. She used to watch Charles Kuralt. And at the end of the show, he would go, "No, we leave you with the eastern egret mating in the marshes."
Yes. I used to love
And
Charles
that
Kuralt
was
too. On the Road Again and the whole bit.
the best. But my cat would watch the birds. And so I said, we should end our show with the most disturbing piece of footage we can find. And that became the Moment of Zen. Anyway, it was awesome.
My wife's brother still works there to this day. He's been there for, I don't know, at least a decade.
Did
I lose you again? Oh, no, you're there.
Sorry. He works for
the Daily Show.
Oh, awesome. What does he do?
Props and he's another shooter and other things. I don't know.
Cool. Well, there's still several people there. There's several people there that were there from the beginning. There's a couple of lifers on board.
Yeah.
And then, the ride got, Craig left. I was asked to go to CBS. Jon comes on. And then it went on crack because it really did.
Yeah, when Jon got there, the show really, really...
It took off. But it didn't happen in one day. It happened slowly and surely. And if you ever get the chance, watch a special we did called The Greatest Millennium, which was a year end of 1999, but we treated it like we were looking back at the entire millennium. Mm-hmm. And some of our best work and so much fun. And, They Might Be Giants was our house band. And we did all these amazing, just so much fun. And that was really where the new Daily Show happened. And then, of course, it was the 2000 election that put us on the map. And made the Daily Show the source. But so after the 2000 election, I was already feeling like I have gone through all of this to try to become pregnant. I have this child and I'm missing everything. And I wasn't leaving it home at night. And I was missing first steps and first words and play dates and birthday parties. And so I retired after the 2002 election. I was burnt. Like the idea that you can, quote, have it all was not invented by a woman. It is mathematically impossible. And you just, something suffers and it's always going to be you because you're not going to let your kids suffer. You're not going to let your job suffer. So you shortchange yourself and your husband, essentially. And I just realized that I needed to take a step back and just be the mom I had been wanting to be. And so I did that for 3 months. And then I got a call from Garth Ansir, who was the chairman of the WB. And he said, come to California. I'm doing a show called Steve Harvey's Big Time. And it's all your people. It's human interest. And I moved to LA. And I basically piloted America's Got Talent. One of my producers left with 2 years. We did 2 seasons. And the first 2 seasons of America's Got Talent were literally not just the people that we had booked, but the segments that I had helped my producers produce for the guests, because she took all the segment notes and marched right over and gave them to Simon Cowell to get herself a job. Anyway, ran a production company in LA, did a late night show for BET, launched a news franchise for Al Gore for Current TV, did a show with a talking chameleon, had
There's
a pool.
No point when you weren't busy, that's for sure.
Yeah. And then what happened? Oh, God, but he did National Geographic, back together with Sam, moved to Seattle. I get to Seattle. And I'm like, okay, there's no comedy television here. What am I going to do? Like, there's no industry. I'm in this place. He's going to work all day. It's raining.
Yeah, I'm unemployable. What do we do?
What am I going to do? So he gives me a cooking class for Christmas, and I take something called Knife Skills. And I go to this place, and there's 30 people, and we're basically chopping carrots and onions and celery for 90 minutes. And the chef who's teaching it is wonderful, and he's very knowledgeable and lovely and charming, but he's not an entertainer. And I feel some entertainment needs to happen. So I started entertaining the troops. Like I never did stand up, but I'm always the one in the back of the room that's like making everybody crack up, and I love it, but I don't ever want to have a microphone like that in front of my face. So at the end of the class, his name was Seppo, he calls me over. Can I talk to you? And I go, oh boy, I am busted. That was really disruptive. I'm writing the script in my head. And instead he says, have you ever taught cooking? He said, I run a cooking school in Seattle, and we do corporate team building for the Microsofts, Amazons of the world. And you have a great personality, and you clearly love food, and we can train you. And then I pivoted, and I became a Chef Madeleine. It took me like a year to be able to whatever, but I drew on all my lifetime of being obsessed with cooking. And it turns out I was great at leading the teams. What have I done but lead teams all my life?
Of course you were. Yeah, exactly.
And I got hurt, I got cut, I got burnt. But after about 7 months, I really started feeling comfortable, and I was loving it. And then Sam asked me to marry him, and we planned our wedding for March 21st of this year on a beach in Loreto, Mexico. And I turned 60 like a year ago, literally a year ago yesterday.
Congratulations.
And I remember thinking to myself, look at you, Madeleine Smithberg. You are 60 years old, and you have pivoted, and you have a new life, and look at you, and you should never do that. It's like asking the question, what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Because you're going to get the answer. And
isn't this great?
Yeah, no, don't ever ixnay, kanahura, as the Jews would say. So I was supposed to be married on March 21st, and guess what happened? This virus.
Yeah, March 21st this year. Quite a bit happened.
Yeah. So I never got to have my wedding, and Blue Ribbon Culinary, where I was cooking, closed on March 1st. So we end up going in front of a judge and just tying the knot. My kid's on, the FaceTime. And now we go in to have our honeymoon in quarantine, and I'm a mess. I'm I pivoted. I'm a chef, but now I'm not. And my wedding, I'd been planning, the TV producer was planning the wedding of a lifetime on a beach in Mexico. You can only imagine the detail. There was cards. I had cards on a board for the wedding when the tequila shots were happening, when I was going to put on
Guess what? We're changing directions.
Yeah. Exactly. Take them down. We're gonna just be locked in a room, and you think you want to spend the rest of your life with the person, but you don't necessarily want to spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, it's been intense. So about 3 weeks into the lockdown, I've stopped getting dressed. But I kind of drag myself into the kitchen, and I cannot hardly form sentences. I'm so just bereft. And I hand Sam my phone and sort of explain to him in grunts and hand signals that I'm going to make some pasta, and he's going to record it, and that I'm going to put it on YouTube. And that was it. Mad in the Kitchen was born. I started my channel in my pajamas, without my hair brushed, with my dirty dishes in the shot. I mean, my friend Elise said, you didn't clear the counter? Why am I looking at your dish drainer? And I was like, oh yeah, and the dish soap? What am I doing? I see my sponges, on that in the shot. But what happened was, it just started growing and growing and growing, and people started reacting. And there are so many people that have come to me and said, I've never had courage to cook, and you made it. I've found this niche of being relatable and simplifying things and making it not precious and doable and funny.
And funny and fun for sure.
funny and fun. And all those cooking demos that I produced on Letterman, I'm using those muscles to produce my own show. And then this man came out of the sky. His name is Sky, and he was an editor. And he said, "Hey, can I edit your videos?" And so Sky has become on board now. He's co-producer with me. The last shoot I did, I had 5 cameras and a drone, and I was in a garden. I have been on a morning show in out of Portland, Northwest. I've been on 3 times. I've been on a show out of Minneapolis. I'm booked again. I'm in talks with the Today Show. Evening Magazine was here last week, and this is all in 5 months.
This is amazing.
I know. So food, and Sam is my cameraman. We still use the iPhone as the hero cam. Although I've now upgraded to the 11, just because it's a little bit of a better camera than what we were using. But it's
Believe it or not, we are still on the iPhones here as well, so I'm with you.
Really?
Yeah,
they're
believe it or
pretty
not.
damn good.
Yeah,
they're
is.
Pretty good. And yeah, I have a switcher now. I have on a normal shoot in my kitchen, we'll have 3 cameras and a switcher. And then when we do special occasions, like I did one called Steak on a Lake, Sky lives on a lake, and I got to use a surfboard as a countertop. And the Canadian geese flew by as I was cutting my steak, and I yelled, "Go back to Canada! If you won't let us in your country, we don't want you here." And everybody, the people in like paddle boats were dying laughing. Like, I'm having so much fun.
Well,
and I'm starting live streaming. I'm going to do this Saturday will be my first live stream on both YouTube and Facebook. And we're going to figure out how to do it on Sam's in the window. He just scared me. He calls that stealthing. But anyway, it's been great.
When you're on these other shows, are you doing
cooking.
Demos? You are doing demos. So
I'm doing cooking.
So do you bring all the stuff and go to the show, or do they send the camera to you, or is it both?
Because of the pandemic, we do it all on Zoom. So my kitchen is now set up like your basement. I have like a TV studio in my kitchen. I have lights. I've got the Madonna remote microphone.
That's
I can
awesome.
do dance routines.
I guess my point is there anything you can make in about an hour or so? Because I want to just be able to check. And Madeleine, how are we doing on the egg rolls? And Madeleine.
Oh, I'll totally in an hour. I can make things in 6 minutes. Yeah, I've been doing.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
that's so great.
And it's been just hilarious. It's been so gratifying, so unexpected. And I really believe, and now I'm not being funny or sarcastic, I'm like a COVID success story.
You are a COVID success story.
I'm a COVID success story. I've had something good actually happen to me in my life.
Madeleine, we've gone way long, but I have enjoyed every second of this. I could keep going and just listen to you for days.
Come back. I'll come back.
Can we do it again?
Sure.
Fantastic.
We can
in the meantime, everybody should watch Mad in the Kitchen on YouTube. Subscribe. You got to watch a video all the way to the end, but that's not hard. You're going to watch, when you watch one, it links into the other, and then you kind of, if you're just sitting on the couch using like the Apple TV or whatever, you're going to find yourself just rolling into a few, and it's kind of fun. You get inspired too. You might want to decide to make some of these things yourself. But even if not, even if you don't have any interest in cooking, it's good entertainment. It's good fun.
It's fun. I try to make them really fun because I feel like there's so much negative in the world right now that I just want to give people a chance to, escape for 11 minutes into a world that is where the most important thing is, slicing mozzarella. So that's what I like. And the website is madeinthekitchen.com, and all the videos are on there, as well as a lot of stories and some Letterman clips, actually.
Oh, no kidding. Love that. No.
Yep. You've got Border Collies herding sheep. And
by the way, that Border Collie thing, we only got to the Live at 5 part. Not only did it work so well in the show, they ended up putting it in the 10th anniversary special and recreating it at Radio City Music Hall.
Correct.
All the way up the aisle, through the lobby, down through the outer lobby, and then out the sidewalk, out into the cab.
Correct. But I have a really amazing story that goes with that, with the behind the scenes, and I'll tell you it next time I'm on.
I love it. behind the scenes of the Radio City Music Hall dog and sheep story.
Dog and sheep story coming up. And yeah, there's just so many funny memories. But thank you so much for listening to me for all this time.
I love you, Madeleine Smithberg.
This has been a blast. Will you send me a link so I can post it on my various portals?
Of course I will. I will. It should. It's the live version's up now, and there'll be a replay we'll put up in a couple hours. But I'll send it to you in an email.
Perfect.
And everyone else
Thanks.
can just watch
Bye,
it.
everybody.
Thank you, Madeleine Smithberg. I just adore you. That was absolutely awesome.
Aw, thank you. It was
so fun.
fun.
So fun.
Bye.
All right, everybody. Let's see. We didn't get to a couple things. We got to do some announcements, and we've got a TBT video. You know what? We'll skip the TBT because we're so late. But I do have to do the announcements. Of course, if you're in a part of the world where you should be wearing a mask and you see someone who isn't, you could say to them, hey, need a mask? ShopHunziker.com. That's what we did. ShopHunziker.com. Nicholas Hunziker. Fine art. Good stuff. All sorts of designs, too. That's just one. I've got a whole bunch, and there are way more than the ones I have. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that this episode, as well as all of the episodes of Late Night Playset lately, have been brought to you by St. Clair Insurance. St. Clair Insurance is a Haggerty company. They present Haggerty Insurance. If you are already a Haggerty customer and you don't have a rep, maybe you just signed up online, I highly suggest getting a rep. Even Haggerty suggests that. Go to coverageforyourtoys.com. That's St. Clair Insurance. 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 It's like, what's the Empire Carpet, and the phone number and the whole bit. This is Jay Ryan reminding you, they say all that separates men and boys is the coverage for their toys. St. Clair Insurance has coverage for your toys. What are toys, by the way? This is a long commercial. What are toys? It could be anything. If you want to insure your lawnmower, I bet you could do it. But boats, jet skis, cars, especially collector cars, RVs, your home, your business, all the stuff that requires insurance. Check it out with St. Clair. Coverageforyourtoys.com. I think that's it. I think we got through all the stuff. Next week here, I'll be back on Tuesday with Tuesdays with Tori. And on Thursday, we have Gabe Abelson. It was Letterman month. Gabe was a writer on Letterman. He's a wonderfully talented writer and mentalist even. And he's going to be here, I think, via Zoom. And we're going to have a nice catch-up. He's one of my favorite people. We had a conversation the other day. Thought it'd be pretty quick. It ended up being like 90 minutes. So he's one of those people. Not dissimilar to today. Love everybody at home. Please love one another. And tomorrow, Breakfast Club. We're not going to do it at Newcomb's because of the fires, but we are going to do it up at, what's it called? Bears Divide. Bear Divide. Bear Divide. BEAR Divide. Put it in your maps and stuff. Figure it out. Love everybody. Love everyone else. Please love one another. See you tomorrow. If you're going to Breakfast Club. See you next week for everybody else.